Thank you, Owen, and I want to thank Soleil. It's a pleasure to be here. We just had just a little drink outside on the patio just now, and although I'm very honored and flattered that you would be here today, I do wonder about your priorities. You should be. I'll go quick so you can go outside. You don't want to waste this day. So in my mind, it's difficult to separate today from the talk I gave yesterday. They're maybe saying a lot of the same things on different registers. So those of you who were able to come to the talk yesterday will hear those resonances. And for those of you who weren't there, hopefully this will be worth something on its own. I would say that part of what I was talking about yesterday was, I guess this, I have been thinking about it over the last couple of years as a kind of this tremendous ambivalence that I have begun to feel about art, which is, I love art, and it's really been as close as I've ever been able to get to a kind of religious feeling, but I feel like I'm losing my religion over the course of the last few years. And I would say that's probably too personal of a way to look at it. That really what it is about, it's not about so much how I feel as much as it's about how we all have to now negotiate and work through this. First of all, we have to identify and examine, and then begin to negotiate and work through, let's say, this sort of contradiction between art and, let's say, I'll use a phrase that my partner and my most frequent collaborator on everything, Laura Harris, calls aesthetic sociality. And I think we all deeply hope, even if we don't know that we hope, that when we look at a work of art or experience a work of art, that we will get some sense of the aesthetic sociality out of which it emerges. But very often we have to confront the fact that art seems to be much more capable of extracting from that aesthetic sociality than of sort of recycling it or renewing it. And that's part of the reason is because of the almost inherent force of a certain kind of commodification. Maybe the word would be the interplay between commodification and valuing, and it's hard to separate that moment where you think, oh, this work is beautiful, this work means so much to me, and that's a kind of valuation. And we like to imagine that kind of valuation is totally different from the kind of valuation that would occur at an auction, let's say. But what if those modalities of value are actually really bound up with one another, at which point that's another contradiction that we have to deal with. Anyway, not that I'm not trying to give another talk, but all I'm saying is a lot of this writing is a way of trying to begin to understand these questions, but they're always filtered through some really deep experience of viewing, or listening to art, and of a certain kind of commune with artists. So that even though I'm losing my faith in both art and artists, I can't break away from art and artists. And I'm beginning to think that maybe I shouldn't try. So we'll see. So this first poem is, or I don't even know if it's, well, this what I'm getting ready to read is called The Red Sheaves. And it's was very much inspired by the work and by the chance I had to kind of talk with and correspond with a great artist from the United States named Jenny C. Jones. And so The Red Sheaves. We're walking an open diary. Inconstancy, which seems like exercise in parting, is really overlap and incline. A velvet sound map of approach, inviting sublorn attention in approach to write the movement of our viewing in the moment and apply and violently to soften our eyes as she applies and softens brightness and shadow and emulsion, grave and fly in rough compliance, sharing trembling cusp and tending unknown partners toward them as we practice saving differences in quiet stride. Should we take off our shoes? May we take off our shoes? Touring this mosaic of fluid thickened plains, loosened as we keep turning cube in continual return of leaving, being sensorium's variorum, to scratch and spin, still being stranger in that manner, with those manners, lightly measured, somehow mistaken. The sharpness of these angles lets us gently ply the angles of our turning, almost trying to get behind the volume of the room. There's warmth there where they seem to come from. They are recording angels, so we join them. Them, now, what are they? These surfaces or garments or tapestries or sculptural afformances whose shade and weave refuse the mix of prior separation. It's not that they're not paintings. It's that in that they are paintings, not what it is. Cranky intelligence, running all the while from what he stomps on, hiding, dancing cheek to cheek in brutal murder, petting brilliant dogs, says they're jazz or jazzy in regard of brutal, tentative regard of brilliant fullness in the ethical expanse of our intensity of touching. But no one ever occupies their own space, darns that dream of subjects holding objects in their hands. The open-handed sew all that away, aside and seeding, releasing into turbulence, to which close looking, listening to linen run and cluster, attune, and the room is not a volume but a way, some surfacing, unit caught up in playing back diffusion, where we follow with our fingers' eyes, tracing the retracing of our steps, while light that's always been in there comes in. My surfaces are the extent of my reach. Stay here. Her surfaces aren't flat if you move slow. Step to and from them as you're in them. Them all trance in transit, indicating all against held still and holding, surfacing. All over ain't the same as all up in. A black and red seed haptic operation, seeing, reverently seeing, seeding, refuse to accede to observation, exuding plaid in the ongoing making of an atmosphere, in rubbing, leaving pouring from the wall in tinted, slightly tinted fabric. See, Miss Jones, a book whose pages wash long shores. Look how we get a depth feeling of words on leaves. But what's a depth feeling? A variant on or a vagrant all up in a picture feeling? Is it glad, man? Is it sad? Is it three-dimensional emotion? A feeling of it, which is softly an illusion, imperspective, an optic trick in actual travel, someplace to dance and tarry where the words make thunder in the air, might drive you mad, man. Open blocks or boats or text ferrying knots between foam and dry. Can they be staggered, torqued, quadrilateral and turned through the difference on their margins? The dreams would be a way some blocks might verge in the ardent grids of eye tests to get the feeling of a structure always verging, having always deserved writing, as if writing be walking back and forth to turn some air on in the room, or turn the ground over, or turn jewels into motion on the wall. The stroll, while we stay here, is cursive, and suddenly trance is torn, and then there's tearing. And what about this non-sensual semantic phenomenon in which the word constant, in the phrase constant structure, can only ever mean to change? Change is syntactic substrate, so that constant structure is what we errantly keep calling, in echo of our blessing, changing same. Delta, sustained, all blue, be laughing at decision, meticulous. We share the concern delamatek pour the meticulous, whose presence welcomes gentle, urgent, outdoor deviations of the sea. We constantly want, in tone bursts, structure out of round, laugh, delay, and jackeying march, where some same qualities with different roots play parallel, giving free and shifting nothing extrinsically, non-sensually depth felt in being seen plus heard, to be more plus less than reason comprehends, but cool in how to stay, and how we just can't stay, and how we can't just stay. Ooh, a structure of wind or a range of absent wings or tongues that keep on making their impression. Oh, after party of apprehensile coil, recalling bird, as some birds recite aesthetic informality without an art form or an artist or a balloon released that we all be driving, but all held, but all flowering hedge. If we take some notes to cull into a row of breathing, can we see they won't quite fit that toe-up edge, wrapping round pages past Euclid and Queensbridge, sunk in the nasty implications of our points and lines, the neighborhood they refer to in shook turn, which gets to another cousin of constant structure, the logic and the graph of place themselves, in their destructive play on plotless selflessness, maintained in folding, bending, crumpling, and tearing too, and acute and fine as hell, and constantly, endlessly shouting Carolina in the general blue, in grass, and must be abstract too. Feeling depth is soulful refusal to separate practice from what that was in your hand. Nothing ever comes of infinite rehearsal. We practice what we practice all along, writing laborious weavings, aerate blocks and thread and patched memorial quilt, post-woven, bent G and Hawes remorseless visiting and working, more tilling, more tiling, grounding improvision, uprooted roots up under a table prepared for revising. This steady occultivation of nothing in general, in Black refusal of the cult of genius, which Black geniuses keep trying to renew, keeps wandering as they keep wondering, dread looking back while laying back and lightly hoeing rows and all that yearning in your hand. How many consecutive chords can we play? We need constraint so we can see a layout of what ain't been laid out yet, a remnant of all but conceived, a shadow of indication. Let's see what it's like to submit to no design, undevoted to line breaks only come from being broken. When we come upon what comes up on us from behind, When we're walking straight ahead, eyes wide open, over the rent-partying cliff of some striving cliff as we curve through the bend in the river, in the shimmering moonlight, in the water, remember, and the birds, and the sharing attention of all the ledges, as if y'all been waiting for we and them, in the general Guiana's remainder, overlooking bridgeless gray in the edge of eyes whose edge are blue with age and fall, rays, forgiven as the sea, the ravaged and the loved. The book is a three-dimensional scene of our infinitely rich and more unruly free-dimensional jam. Don't feel bad. It's a volume and a room. But the page is a plane. It's just plain, brocaded non-locale spread out from our turning through a kind of rising, past the term of that lonely binding into anapolymer, the bright red extent of our reach beyond grasping. It's what abstraction is supposed to give, what imaginary numbers give, and how we work through little play complexities of obstruction so we get to go through someplace else as something comes for us in all this goings on until we surface feeling depth in our complicities of the book party, in the book of riot, in the general Chicago, because it lets you see better. The music's residue lets you hear better when you go outside and matter builds from groove and shift to gather. For tonight, we are the book. We are the field we are. Not what we are in sedimental brooks with open gales, with no name, all involved with singing with comping, with weaving with the work of come and go. We make believe in differing till we believe in surfacing, in sounding, and then drawn out past every partial dignity, a song. Parting is crowded in this oncoming, in this part of ongoing flow and flow, choir and choir, row and row. Caress, confession, congressive edge, the rim breathes, the red sheaves. Okay, so I guess everything is going to be kind of long today. So take a little breath. Okay. Yeah, it's all kind of art stuff, I suppose you could say. This is a piece that was written. Sometimes somebody might ask me to write an essay about an artist, and some artists and their work hits me in a way that an essay just doesn't come. But sometimes something else comes that's more like a poem. So this is in relation to and under the influence of a great photographer and installation artist and curator and everything else named Carrie Mae Weems. And it's called Tables and Gems. And the tables refer to her sort of famous kitchen table series. And the gems are refer to this beautiful little book that she did called African Gems and Jewels. Okay. So Tables and Gems. Held and unheld here in love, having been accused of telling stories. Look how violently we fold and tint and follow haze come into branch and spring and gone in breathing armor. Come make some garden inside. The scene is everyday, let's see. The situation is fractured arbor. An old dress made new the old way, out of absent extra, starched and pressed in low gravy. Come up on not enough again's invisible veer. Plot gets folded, handed, and put away with all our vibrant things of hush and ardor. Flavor is an undertone of broken necessity. Fray as ornament and active hip, be switching towards suggestion. broke off almost all the time into break me off some, fold shades, irregular fragments of satisfaction and shine, fold and then leaf for these violent festivals, cooking till you can't cook no more, anthologies of disappointment as is you is until unsettled, seen is the set of all unheld and held in pure routine. Must be ours, can't be ours, must be though, because suggestion just can't stop. So let's prepare some improversion, freaky scene. You see it in pursuit. You see it in pursuant retrospect. PECT depicted on deep saucers in dead clearings, where we read mistakes away in sheen from under memorial made preparations. We want to be ready. We got to get made up is what we got. Data's allure is lore in shades and tables turn immeasurable. Consolved, come set some and unsettle. Come sip some. Saucer starts singing after all that ravishing. Glaze ain't got no sense. See, that's just the glamour of suffering. This abstract thing going abstract for you with our built-in best visual practices lets tables provide limitless interruptions of analysis. The rhythm of tongues lacing rice with scraps don't count. Won't stop because company has its place every once in a while. We sweeten and persuade, but don't count on that. Wood unravels into juke. Braided color dries and tesses. Miss Alma adds some leaves to read. Coffee's air ain't particular. Smoke hums unmade patterns of bazaar and aftervow and mutual aid. Data fabric design and little pitter panthers polish, nick, and singe like school teachers. A Pontiac and a bunch of pamphlets. Some mutual shudder looking back and little time circles listening to y'all in pain. Send them off somewhere deadly to practice by. The scold they've come to expect is the cold they used to feel. It's all love. It's all about love, fold, and no one survives intact. Y'all gone now, and the album and that little mark he would put on what we give away sprays out into unfamiliar hands. In the bottom can't be too much strife in the background or too much shade and smoke. We need all the sunset of the color. If flames are gem-like, it's Ruby Duncan, my dear. All the people in the picture are the people in me. This overcrowding is all off in regular amazement from root to root and inlaid with imaginary mill quarter body. Jack fluffy scuffs on time to the splintered walls of the news of the world so that the beauty shop, as if they were a silver platter, stay and take our seat and say, shh. We're always about to hear something. What we hear is something we're all about to hear recede in plain sight and song in the sense of things and in the way. Wonder what all that wonder's about. It's about to withdraw, something about to be withheld. If there's a secret in what we see, it's gone. Can we go too? Let's go all up in there for the memory, for all work's intricacy on Boo Boo's birthday. Tintless on the underside. Sometimes you be looking for the color over there, and here it is, unbound. Ultimately, the rhythm is so supersessive that preparation forgoes itself in light. What's left is what wouldn't have happened, and ain't no baseline for the club's proceedings. There is, however, her shell with its ominous protection, a rumble completely taken away from jealous hums and folded into this whole offset of cues for the cenobitic pleasures of cove, cells wondrously bearing both rendezvous and interview. See if we can't get you into CETA. See if Baccarat can't let us be. See your lower left arm on the lower left corner fold. Sometimes prepare is just meadow on the wall. We love the lichen of our fingerprints when we feel them like strangers. The bloom and the blemish all epistrophic in the general catastrophe, which we meet in double sets of folded arms. Am I my father in my smile? The stormy circle blessing that left corner moves from frame to keep from moving. We work what's held here cosmically, the buttons and the sewing of the binding. Another word for blur is backbone slip or cart. Various ways of going home to the way more direct gleam of Palenque's Isle of Palms in the history of paving and stealing. The history of who was here is read as here we are. That recoil is our travel log. I wanted to touch myself along the seawall. He saw me coming from a mile away. That embrace was how we said something through one another. Our hipness comes so smooth, girl, I can't believe it. I believe in it, though I don't get around. This lavender blocking of the Saturday dance must be a tone effect of our pan-affective turn. Shit kicks in at a level of intensity that far outweighs our actual contacts. I need to see you this way, through another color, through a board of tone breathing overtone in the blocking of the village. If I see that setting, then I can see the emanation of show and fade, and we have to work too hard for the beam we give back. Something's wrong, but we can fix it. Let's see if we can fix it right now. See how all the irreparable landscapes feel like they persist in variety? Pretty soon the kids will come and take these books and records and lay them out in flowers on the sidewalk. Even acute fingering of our work and their scarved and scarred and feathered hair will disappear in the echo of what we give away, which I want to give away in the echo of an abbey, in the all in your hand and eye at the end of Blue Monk again and again, and our green thought is you. Here, I'll just read a short one. It's called the Fairy Ornithology, and it's, I guess it's kind of a mashup of an encounter with the English Renaissance poet Edmund Spenser and this great friend and thinker that I have who, she's from England, I guess, but she lives now in California, teaches at University of California, Berkeley, and her name is Fumi Okiji. I keep wanting to become a booking agent for for all these cultural institutions in Oslo, but I got to invite Fumi Okiji to come here, Anyway, so this is the Fairy Ornithology. With Fumi's dancing branches, feels the non-sensuous feel of feeling depth, the range of fringe or frill, the trill that various change of direction makes in murmurs various gathering of breeze, the tinge of various turn and murmur, nonsense, blue fascinums return to Exodus, unvoid or atom, not between bird and all the various indecision. For there is nothing lost that may be found if sought is neither here nor there, in tide and flight, array, repose, and tarry. Let's see. No, I can't read that one. I'm trying to clean up my vocabulary so y'all won't know the real me, because 80% of my words are curse words, and I just don't know how that goes over in a different place. But it's like the longest I've gone without saying motherfucker in like 3 years. I just fucked that up. So anyway, So these are two that are kind of a matched pair. One is tiling lining notes. A river is studio agitation through one window. A loft and rock bottom soft support and rumble. A room, a cell alight in the way the walls walk off in jubid pat and tiling. The pattern on the river floor, all absolute and indiscernible unless you walk it, in the river, as all this rotary soar of the damned and held, sous vide in second linearity, parading in this tubid lining out of the basic line, all and against itself, in black and blue switchback, and Beatrice is smiling, seeing all our little differences together, in the venereal collection areas, serial eddying of how we taste and feel inseparably. There's just so many ways to keep going along the way. The miraculous influence is deltaed in Floridian branch or mangrove double silt, Coahoma County moaning or swung Oklahoming, a gap band or a gap in nature kind of sounding, drowning, burning, this continually Caribbean being on fire of the river, from river to river on canal and torn to another bleeding place we from in our Lenape shift, our Delaware gap band, sending geography through a sycophantic horn chart of the natural city in and out of its broken window, cadence still cruising mobile studio, unnamed, and making waves is what it sounds like. Lining, tiling, moaning, smiling, drowning, bleeding, burning, seeing, sending, sounding just like Joseph Daly, Thurman Barker, Dave Holland, and Sam Rivers. This is tilling, limning notes. Tile or fleck, as if daub or stroke, but a cut of blue. Flesh cut a glance of blue for train. In the general murder, all but mute for Amadou Diallo. You have to get so close to see the glance and shine. You get too close to see the glint in flames. Read the braille of trembling through the sea of inflection. Éclat, écligné, and cling to the firmness of our wave function. A clarity of sweep in black as dawn dawns on us with such gravity, such fabricant gathering of matter in the fabricant matter of gathering Jack Whitten's Rose Corona, working violently with outpouring, work made of unmaking a monastic love of sequence, in solemn, intermittent space-time sewn with the decorative weight of Edward Whitten and Thomas Whitten and Bill Frank Whitten. This scroll of cut out broken canvas looks like looking with a movie, injured, lined out surface, adores flatness with thick character acting, mapping distressed by serial grounding, scuffed ornament, microtonal abrasion all over again, the textural slur of tilling and limning, Emma and Emily whispering, the precise irregularity of anamosaic gesture is a habitat of schools in a bessemer tree, a reef corral and blue hint shadow, graphics soft enough to test and moor and wreathe. A totem is a haunted keyboard, and this ingenious mechanical device is so we can differ in elegiac practice. For criticism is grounded differing, and deciphering is separation scale. Okay, so I think I have time for two more sort of longer ones. So this is called surfacing, and it's sort of a part of a collaboration with a great artist who I know is shown here named Kevin Beasley. Okay, surfacing. Even listening some while walking around, while they try to look up close, where Tootie counters under all over like Tootie Heath, like the days in grain, the specific gorse in specific burning, giving, glare again from bowl to wisp, which won't be the same as centering. Surfacing can only be reviewed. Eccentric landscape and recur, misbehave 2 or 3 times in dragged approach and blown in common wind and broken weather. Sound like some sugary complications of surfacing walking around. Our boots on and take them off and put them in a row on the porch, then shell some peas off our delicate patch. Surfacing is different than facing by surfeiting and forfeiting the terrible history of face becomes surfacing, which is the history of position, which confers through circle and ongoing plat. It's closer than that, preferring surfacing to face so close that water run like Libba's hard row luxury. Light compression, a tightening slice of lighted acre, which bears the weight of our delay. Soft, breathable textile, fibroid mat with blood from hand in torture. All that blood breathed by Manchester babies. All that blood drunk by the man in Mayfair. The vegetable lamb's blood on branches, tied to the whipping machine, trapped in the drum machine. Jewels set in drums whip topography, baled in pools of blood mixed by a pioneer, spun out by DJ Gandhi G for protection and remembrance to demonstrate subtle boom and fire. To make do and overdo and linger in this always being overdue, always behind, arrear, interred and double entered, interminably indebted, which seem like it do so much sharper now than any deed for this handing and tilling, this light stepping on stolen land. What I owe you? Nothing, all surfacing all over the place. Superficial, some super facility of passage or passing out past passage and surfeit, supple, super supplement, subluxurious wealth already given in polilo, making dues, little sharing and coming, all forfeit, ingenerate handing over, in steady transgress giving not enough, which is too much. The cotton gin is inseparable in defacement in the blasted and unavailable and disavowed portraits we let the world see because we can't look unless we look so close it's gone, because we gone. In seeing all in nothing, all above and below and aside, in surfacing, in this fiery digging and hovering, thickening, surfacing and tending to it, dubbing and redoubling the merger in divergent complicity, emerging in the way out of no way we keep misplacing and all that spinning and milling around. Tilling and mixing and weaving, that purposeless spinning and demonstrating, always about to go off, all but out of round, in how outness is always pending in this hanging around, this offset setting down, always all up and set it off, tending toward getting set out for the new thing, looking back and looking around and bending, spinning hid in the work and the wake of the southern question. Does spinning negate the careful brutality? It's just the sunshine in your brutal uniform. All that blood is the engine. Is that gin a computer? That computer picks cotton. All the magic is industrial. Is your Mac a McKinney? Nothing is, but who's digging, granting every wish, all this combing and souffle, as if a band was climbing in the thickness of our flagrant dream, all turned and spun in how we're trapped in what we need, our gathering in hunger, our murmuring in murder, our holding on in being held. Yelling across that ochre field in a tempo we share to turn. It's spring and yelling mixes, or new in measure, and the stripes are high draped, really yellow in that tender evening tree. What's the difference between grounding and background? It's not between them, but it is all up in grounding and background, and in their common engineering and imagining, because the sound of a field that's worked and played on by a Black family in them for 100 years makes owning a lie until some kind of way it doesn't, in some kind of so-called freedom. And then some kind of way, some nothing comes out from something and plays all through the work to play like it holds something for us, for them to see, to bear the burning of our giving it away. Making laying sculpture down light blue, like looking can't be felt, but sound. Nobody brought their box, but they come to see you give. They have, evidently, so they want some more. They want more demonstration, the circle, the salt march, the charka, the shaker, the gira, the engine, the garment and surfacing, sounding like groove thread burning and giving. But it's not just that, because in the touch of these tables you prepare, surfacing curves, the convulsion of our feeling, and they're looking not quite close enough. That convolution always surfacing again, so that there's still the heavy play of surfacing, having worked through break and console. Surfacing describes, tells out its own ekphrastic outline out of turn, unplotted, burned in giving. Ain't no story ever mine, ain't no spot ever belonged to me, no map of all the intensities of either edge, just a spot so real that it's surreal complaint, which differential presence brings through all that weighing, never close enough to feel or hear or see through, all up on you at a distance while we're on the ground, is that we demonstrate surviving by spinning, which is surfacing. Okay. All right. I'm going to read one more, but I don't know which one. I'll read this one since it's next. I should have read this at first, maybe, but whatever. No, I don't mean it like I don't care. I just mean it like this is what happened. The abolition of art, the abolition of freedom, the abolition of you and me. Art don't work for abolition. Art works for bosses like you and me. If let's abolish art sounds too close to let's abolish you and me, it's because it is. I love art and I love you too. And this is a love song, so it's got to be too close. Freedom is too close to slavery for us to be easy with that jailed imagining. We've been held too close by that too long, and all that air they steal in our eyes while we swarm in common auction. In my eyes, art had me from hello. It's me when Ronnie Isley oversays it. I thought about us for a long, long time. I followed mythic being on the bus. If I'm a slave to art, am I a slave to love? Am I a ferryman? Am I abridged? Am I from Houston to Oakland to Houston to Oakley to Houston to Oakland Ave? Or just a name to have for this ordered action? No aviary setting, just absent settling for the moral law within on this highline stroll. Ain't there this new way of gathering that's not like that? Like when we do it so pretty and there's no selling instead of visiting, just this old revolutionary visiting where no one lives in how we fellowship in abolition, which is long and sudden presencing when Ruthie Gilmore undersays it. This exhausted, endless swerve of beauty from art, of movement from freedom, jail being their being held in being, not ours. is way past you and me and the lives we hide away from them and you and me and looking after them. Art works their being there. That's the cold funerary origin of the work of art. Our beauty wants to hold us in not wanting being there with them. Don't want to be like that at all. Let's work on work like Murray Jackson. Let's work through work like General Baker. Let's work it and reverse it like misdemeanor. Let's work against monastic rule with the boy next door. Let's work against anything that works against we job people can make it work. Let's work against royalty like a prince formerly known as the artist. Let's work against how art don't work for abolition. Let's work the artwork down to common nubs, low gravy. Let's work through freedom from can't see to see through how we mow Miss Lady's yard. When we were talking with Erica and we talked about Tony Cade Bambara, and Erica held her so soft on fire that we saw blue fields in June Jordan's eyes. And we saw that we could sit and talk about a little culture. We saw that we could see through ourselves through Sylvia Wynter in America. We saw that in broken memory of them, we'd starved our mothers with still accomplishment, drowned in real abstraction and false care, holding our held against each other for the tired purity, for some let me make you over in the image of my dream of who I am when I dream of being me at the center of all dreaming, a circle of dreamers of the center, all dreaming of me in lemon yellow sun, a picture of another world where you're my residue, my love. Even in my black art, you do just what I say till the black aesthetic, which black art bears with love and leads us from art and you and me and slavery and freedom to a form and oblige in near and lovely distancing, our real black share. Okay, thank you.